We are here this week to talk about episode 3 of season 1 of Westworld, The Stray, joined by Amanda again. And for the first time of the season, Rob LaCuria. Rob, just give us your general thoughts on Westworld after this third episode. You into the show?
Yeah, well, just before we were recording, I asked the question, but I'll ask it again. I love this show. I actually love it. I was wondering, are people already into this as much as I am? Because I was really skeptical, and I was thinking, no, I'm going to be really hard on this one because it's based on previous material that's been previously produced or published, and I wasn't sure whether I'd be into it. I love it. I think it is so good, and the only caveat I have is I'm really disappointed that I'm joining this chat because episode 3 has really confused me. I'm really lost and I have so many questions. I'm hoping that I'm going to start kind of cluing into what's going on, because then I'm going to start being a bit worried that I'm stupid. So that's where I'm at right now.
Okay. I've got two quick follow-ups to that, Rob. Firstly, what do you love most about the show? And what were you most confused by in the third episode?
Good question. So what I most love about the show is it's really ambitiously made. I love its production design. I love the aesthetic of the show. So I could just turn down the volume and just watch it because it's so beautiful to look at. That's number one. Secondly, then I could turn up the volume because I love the score by Ramin Djawadi, who also scored one of our favorites, Game of Thrones. I love the opening titles. I love the performances, especially Evan Rachel Wood. She's just knocking it out of the park. She is, I think, already can write her name down as an Emmy nominee, I hope. And I really, really love that it is kind of taking this Western aesthetic and this really futuristic sci-fi aesthetic and melding them together in a really surprising and interesting way. So that's where I'm at with the love. But the confusion for this third episode, we've got the Stray and we've got this Arnold character, and there was a whole bunch of conversations happening between characters where I was just kind of like, what is happening? What are they talking about? Am I alone here? Were you confused?
Amanda, what do you think? Were you confused by the third episode?
I wasn't confused. I was a little disappointed because it was Neil Marshall directing the episode, and this is somebody who gave us Blackwater and the Watchers on the Wall from Game of Thrones. So maybe I had a little higher expectations of this than I should have, just because of the prestige of whom was helming this. But I think it's starting to fill in a lot of information that maybe we need. And this Arnold person, I'm wondering if that is actually who Ed Harris is.
Interesting thought.
I am half right now. Evan Rachel Woods has killed somebody.
Yeah.
Said she was going to kill. I thought she was going to kill either Jeffrey Wright or Anthony Hopkins, but she still has a couple more episodes. She has killed one person.
So that was a person, a human that she killed. That wasn't a robot.
I don't think it was a robot.
Okay. That's it was a very dark scene. I was like trying to keep track of all the everyone's wearing a cowboy hat in the show.
Yeah.
Very hard to see who's who.
Yeah.
Rob, what was your biggest question?
Well, apart from the Arnold character, which I'm sure we'll learn more about, I am still grappling with. Oh, here's an interesting one. This is what I was just talking about last night when I was watching it. How do they get the naked robots into that big spherical world that they're all staring at? Like, how do you transition from the real world into, has that been answered? Maybe I've missed that, but what they do is you have the scenes in the real world, in the futuristic real world, and then it just cuts to black and then it goes straight into Westworld. I haven't seen any transitions yet. That's more of a technical question. I'm curious. Has anyone figured that out yet? How do they move from world to world? Any ideas?
I thought they just cleaned him up and sent him back.
But do they go through a portal? Do they go through a door? Do they go down a slippery slide?
Because we saw like Evan Rachel Wood in that kind of same area dressed, and then just kind of walk out.
They just walk her in, and then they're looking at it from above. I guess it's like a big CCTV type thing, I suppose. Or maybe I'm overthinking it, but I was really wondering that. And I was also thinking, geez, imagine how these actors feel, the ones that are robots that have to sit there in like naked a lot. Like that must be really frustrating, especially for name actors like James Marsden and others. That's yeah, that was the other thought that I had. So that's where I'm at right now.
It seems like Jeffrey Wright, so getting Evan Rachel Wood so often that he can't even be bothered to go through the whole taking the clothes off, putting the clothes back on. Okay, just stay in the clothes. Like I'm bringing you in every episode. This
Pretty
is,
much.
yeah,
exactly.
So yeah, I think they must do it like they put the robots back during the like I guess because people go to the theme park for the day and the park's closed at night, and then or for some of the night, and they sort of put them in then. And I don't know, we saw some lift that they used a couple of weeks ago, like to enter the area. Some of the maintenance people, or Anthony Hopkins or something. So maybe things like that. Yeah, maybe that's sort of what they're doing there. And yeah, like because like I guess it's like sort of like a theme park. Like they do all the maintenance and stuff, you know, probably outside of park hours.
Right.
What like the question I had this episode was like, because we see like some of our visitors to the park sitting around the campfire at night, sort of thing. Like I was sort of wondering when do they close the park? Like when does your day
like a hotel? Like they sleep there and then
so they spend the night there. So you like when do things reset? When does the Groundhog Day open up again?
Yeah.
Like when do you go, like when is the sort of the theme park sort of like fight, I've been at theme parks and sort of at the end of the day they're sort of like, okay, we're closing the queue to this ride now. You got to start going to the gift shop. You've got to start, making your way back to the entrance of the park. Okay, no more, okay, brothel, that's over now because that's the ride that's far away from the train station. So no more brothels because you got to walk back. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know when it ends, when people actually leave this park.
Yeah. Yeah. I have all those thoughts as well, but like if you want to like maybe move on to questions about the story,
yes,
because we could just talk about that all day.
Yeah, yes.
But you know how I've always been fascinated ever since I was at uni 1,000 years ago when
college, Rob.
College is what you probably call it in North America.
Or university. I've never heard
university. Sorry, Australian talk. I remember when I did a lot of film studies, and one of my majors was about the interplay between man and machine. And so I've always been a big nerd for that kind of thing. And so I'm really following this whole concept of sentience, that the robots are starting to emerge in their consciousness, that they're sentient and they have their own free will and self-determination. That stuff really fascinates me. And I think we saw more of that in episode 3, probably more so even in episode 2 with the Tandy Newton character, because she escaped and she saw the horrific, like it was like a Holocaust for her kind. And then she started remembering it very briefly when she was in the brothel in episode 3. And we had other examples where Evan Rachel Wood at the end of the pilot slapped that fly on her face. It was the beginning of her kind of rebellion against her programming. I'm so incredibly, profoundly fascinated by that concept. And I'm dying to know where they're going to take it. And I haven't read the story that it's based on. I haven't seen the film. I don't know where they're going to take it. Do you guys have any opinions about that side of the story? Because for me, that's where it's all at right now. Crickets.
Amanda.
Wow. You studied that in film class. That was my first thought. Clearly, mine was. Clearly, we didn't go to the same kind of film class, film schools. I'm interested in seeing the interplay between waking up and the robots who haven't yet. I was kind of expecting James Marsden to be woken up this episode. We haven't really gotten a lot of him, for him supposedly being the second lead actor for the men. But we did see a lot of interesting things this episode. It looked as though Evan Rachel Wood shot a human. One of these robots self-destructed, which we didn't know that was possible. And then we had her completely deviate from her like story, but we had it cut with Ed Harris, which makes me think he's not up to what we think he's up to. He's not just going around killing people, that maybe he's doing something to these robots. So maybe I'm reading too much into what he's up to, but that...
No, yeah, I don't think you are. I think his character is so critical to the whole arc of this season. I just haven't figured out what it is yet. I have no idea really what his motivation is at all. I'm really puzzled.
But we finally got to see like Anthony Hopkins at his like evil kind of best, because he's warning people these are not humans. Don't get attached to them. Don't worry about their modesty.
Yeah, that's right.
We saw a lot,
the face. Yeah,
we saw a lot more of Anthony Hopkins and his motivation as far as how he got to where he got in this game. So it's one of those episodes that feels very much like a building block, and the same thing goes with a lot of the Game of Thrones. It usually is just ramping up to something that happens around episode 6 or 7.
Yeah, I think like one of the big questions is like, what role is this Arnold going to play? And then you had the theory that it could be Ed Harris's character that you mentioned. I feel like they talked about how like they sort of alluded that Arnold committed suicide, but they called it an accident. Like, I wonder if that could have in fact been a murder. Some kids.
Your sound. Hang on. Start again. Sorry, your sound was just off. Yeah,
my sound was off.
It's okay now. It's okay now. Go for it.
Okay. I was saying that like Amanda said, it could be Ed Harris Arnold. They alluded to it being suicide when in fact it could have been murder. In my opinion, like Arnold could have been murdered if he's not still alive, by someone like Anthony Hopkins, perhaps, or maybe he was killed by one of the robots and they've covered it up or something because they didn't want people to stop going to the theme park. Or maybe it's a kid with a football head that started. Maybe it's a crossover with the Nickelodeon cartoon Hey Arnold. It's a favorite of mine.
It could be anything at this rate. It could be anything at this rate.
Who knows? What do we think about the? Do we have any more Arnold theories? Any more thoughts on Arnold?
No, I'm puzzled.
I think he might still be alive because he's like, oh, we had an accident. Yeah. Well, they showed a lot of flashbacks, but we never saw Arnold's face, and we never saw Arnold's death. And if he was definitively dead, they would have shown us a little bit more than that, is my feeling about
Absolutely. That's 100%. I 100% agree. He's definitely still alive. And I think Anthony Hopkins' character is complicit in his, wherever he may be, and his demise, so to speak. But I think Arnold is there, and I think I'm not sure whether he's a force of good or evil yet. That's what I'm trying to determine. I don't know who's on the good and bad sides and what their motivations are. I'm still trying to work that out, and that's okay. We don't need to have all the answers, but I am scratching my head a lot about who's doing what and why.
We've got, I guess, like there's a whole bunch of angles we could go with the story. With we're going to, as Gold Derby, talk about awards, and I thought this week we would talk about the Screen Actors Guild Awards because we haven't talked about them as much, and how Westworld is positioned to win them. So we might touch on them briefly and then hit up some of these other storylines. I want to talk about what Ed Harris might be getting up to moving forward. I want to talk about what wherever Rachel Wood is left at the end of that episode, her character Dolores with bumping into the guys. I want to talk about the stray that went rogue at the end and self-destructed. We'll hit on those points. But first, just a bit of a talk about the Screen Actors Guild Awards. Do we see this as a player to win Best Ensemble at SAG? It's got Anthony Hopkins, Jeffrey Wright, Evan Rachel Wood, James Marsden, Ed Harris. Like it's a Danny Newton. It's a cast that screams respect in the industry. Will that lead it to a Screen Actors Guild nomination or win for Best Ensemble this year? Rob, what do you think?
I think so. I'm predicting that it will make it through. It also has HBO behind it. I've completely blanked about whether any other ensembles are out of contention. I'm sure that Game of Thrones and Downton Abbey are still in contention because they aired this year.
Yes.
So those two shows seem to be the most popular on the drama side with SAG voters. The only pause I have for Westworld is that we all know very well that SAG voters are really traditional and they're a little slow on the uptake. They're kind of like their fellow Emmy voters. They do take a little bit of time with new stuff. My best example was when they completely blanked Homeland for its first season, when we all thought Homeland was a shoo-in with SAG voters because it was the kind of show they would generally follow. Westworld is sci-fi as well. It's genre, so maybe it may not play with that kind of steak eater type voter. But putting that aside, I think it's so good and it's so well acted, and the cast, as you say, are so respected that surely it's definitely a genuine contender for a nomination.
Amanda, what are your thoughts?
I think for first-year shows to get in, they have to be so popular that there's no doubt anyone saw them. I mean, Glee was one of those that got in its first year in one ensemble. Whether you like the show or not, it had a big ensemble, and it was extremely popular with a lot of momentum going behind it. I think it's hard on the drama side to see something kind of come in its first year and win. I don't really think we have an example of that. Maybe ER did it. I'd have to check, but I don't know.
I believe Boardwalk Empire may have won for its first season at SAG.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Boardwalk Empire did. I don't know, but Boardwalk Empire won after Mad Men had won a couple times, and there was some fatigue. I don't know if it can win. I currently have it in 5th, but that I have it nominated, but I had to bump Better Call Saul to do that.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where I don't know if it could still win, because I think it would have to get past Downton Abbey, and then it would probably have to get past Game of Thrones, because at a certain point they look a little embarrassed not giving Game of Thrones the ensemble award, and this is their last chance to give the Game of Thrones cast, most of the cast, this ensemble award, because they killed off a lot of people this year. I mean, kaboom, they killed off a lot of their cast, so this would be their best chance to give a good chunk of it some recognition.
Yeah,
but on names alone, I would say it's probably got a good chance.
Yeah, to people watching this who aren't as avid SAG award followers, just to put it in perspective, Downton Abbey has won 3 of the past 4 years for Best Drama Ensemble, which is why we're talking about it as such a big player in this race. Game of Thrones never won before. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Downton Abbey won for its first season eligible for this, because we're talking about. It wasn't
eligible for its first.
It wasn't eligible because it was in the mini-series race. Downton Abbey is a pretty confusing one when you talk about season 1 and awards. Because as Amanda said, it's hard for shows in their first season to get nominated here. Obviously, there are shows that have done that, like Boardwalk Empire, and often when they do, they win. Boardwalk Empire got in for its first season and won. Since then, there hasn't, I don't think, really been a first season show that's gotten nominated. So
they waited till the last season of Breaking Bad to finally award that cast. So
they're slow. They're slow.
When it finally got to the point where, okay, we look like morons, which is kind of where they are with Game of Thrones right now.
They look out of touch.
I believe Breaking Bad's first season didn't even get nominated at the Screen Actors Guild. So there is perhaps an argument to be made that if a show gets nominated for its first season, it's got a good chance of winning. Because there aren't too many first season shows nominated, and probably about of the ones that do, at least half of them would win, I'd say. So that's interesting. Sopranos and West Wing, I think, 2 series that also won for their first season at the Screen Actors Guild. And at the Gold Derby odds at the moment, I believe it is sitting at roughly about 5th or 6th position.
It's tied with Mr. Robot, so
it's tied with Mr. Robot for 5th, and American Crime.
Okay,
and this is interesting. And this is it seems like there's quite a few shows sitting on the 16-1 odds at Gold Derby.
They need to change the rules, since we're talking about SAG, and literally go to the limited series instead of mini series, and then expand the awards to giving those ensembles
Yeah.
an award, because the People versus O.J. Simpson, American Crime.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great ensemble work out there on those.
Yeah. Are there any actors we feel have a good shot at the Screen Actors Guild or the individual awards from Westworld?
I would say Hopkins and Evan Rachel Wood probably, for me, are the most likely. They're the biggest names. Particularly Evan Rachel Wood, I just think that she's really very impressive in this. And it's harder, though, because they have one category within which everybody has to be slammed in and kind of, there's more competition. It's tougher.
Yes. I think it's harder for a person to get in on their first year. I mean, that was kind of the boost that Rami Malek needed last year. Was that made me go, okay, now I can predict him for an Emmy, because he was so young. I mean, he's not their typical person that they would go for.
Yeah.
But I think if anyone in the cast is going to be individually feted, it's probably Anthony Hopkins, because he is kind of like up there as far as respect with the actors are concerned.
It's interesting, on Gold Derby at the moment, got Evan Rachel Wood sort of sitting just on the cusp of that nomination, fighting it out with a whole lot of big contenders at 16-1 odds. And we've got Anthony Hopkins in sort of a similar position, pretty far down. There's a lot of people ahead of him on our list, but at sort of 22-1 odds. Sort of with so many people ahead of him. I think they're probably both being underrated a little bit with those odds. I think they've both got better chances than that of getting in. Anthony Hopkins, so respected. And Evan Rachel Wood, who got a Screen Actors Guild Award nomination for film, for lead actress for 13 a couple of years ago. So she's definitely someone the voters are happy to vote for, and that was a pretty competitive field that year.
But they snubbed her for Mildred Pierce. They did snub her for Mildred Pierce, and they nominated Betty White in the movie. I mean, for a movie no one saw.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where for every one thing you can kind of counteract it with another thing that did.
Yeah, that is true. So it'll be interesting to see. It's interesting. Rob says having Rachel Wood's the most likely to get in. Amanda says Anthony Hopkins. Maybe we should put, a poll or something up at Gold Derby where you can see what
good idea,
who people agree with.
And then neither will get in, and it'll just be
and it'll be like James Marsden as a surprise. He'll be like the guy from the Suits.
Yes. So we can have the poll third option. Anyone else? Anyone else?
It could be Sandy Newton. Her best episode did air.
I mean, how amazing was she in that episode? Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It was good. Let's touch on a few of the plot points we didn't get much of a chance to talk on yet. What do we think about the situation with Evan Rachel Wood, her big ending to the episode, where that sets her up moving forward in the series, Amanda?
Well, if it is a human she killed, doesn't she have to go down to the basement at this point? Doesn't? And how does she get a gun? We learned that they're not supposed to be. That some of them are not supposed to be able to touch weapons or fire them for security reasons. So what happened? Which is what makes me think maybe Ed Harris wasn't doing what we thought he was doing in that barn.
Yeah, I want to talk about this scene with her and Ed Harris in the barn. Rob, do you have any thoughts on what Amanda just sort of mentioned? Or
the only thing to add is who did what to her programming to enable that weapons privilege programming to change for her? How did that happen? And
who hid the weapon? Who hid the gun?
Who did that? And when Ed Harris is launching towards her with the knife, what exactly was he going to do? Because I don't think it's what we think. I totally agree.
Yeah. I agree, and I feel like that was maybe a slight weakness in the episode of them sort of it seemed like they were gonna reveal something and then didn't reveal it. But that's sometimes good for a show to end on a cliffhanger or whatever. But it seemed like we just saw some repetition of him going, okay, let's start at the beginning, which sounds like he's going to reveal something to her or tell her something. I am very much of the opinion now that Ed Harris probably did not, that probably wasn't a sexual assault or a rape in the barn, that's probably something else, why he needs a knife for that, though. There's a lot of questions there. And it's going to be very interesting because in the promo for next week, it seems like that Evan Rachel Wood and Ed Harris could have more to do with each other down the line in this series. And it's going to be very interesting as to what he's told her or done to her or said to her in that barn. And I feel like I wanted them to give us, they didn't need to answer everything, but just give us a little bit more in those scenes because it still seems like they didn't give us anything new. Like what do you think? What do you think, Amanda?
Well, I mean, it's one of these things with these cable shows where everything is so planned out, and like by episode 10, everything will make sense. So sometimes you just have to like accept that you don't know by the end of this episode, and know that, and hope that eventually it'll all kind of fall into place where you're like, oh, because we know somebody planted that picture there. We know somebody's planted a gun.
Yeah. So
somebody's up to something.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who seems most likely to do that would be Ed Harris.
Really?
Yeah.
What about Jeffrey Wright? What's he doing?
I think that's one of the reasons why I think he might be the one to die by the end. Is because you feel really bad about his son not being alive. We learned a lot about him. But he also has this like moral conscious, and we know from some shows, usually by the time you become the show's moral conscious, that's usually when you're the first one, you're the next one to die. So
yeah, no, I think anything that's up with Dolores, I'd say that Ed Harris's character and Jeffrey Wright's character are the two sort of primary sort of instigators of that. The stuff with the weapon, the stuff with whatever. Yeah, like. Did she go into the bar? How did she get the gun at the end? Did she steal that off the guy that she was fighting, or was that
had it in the hay?
She was in the hay.
Prepared.
Yeah.
So maybe Ed Harris had put that in the hay when he was in there, because he's someone that we know has been in that barn at some point. I don't know how items get reset or whatever, but yeah, boy. Or maybe she put it in the. Oh no! Because I was saying the drawer had a gun in it too, didn't it? Like in the morning.
It's like she couldn't escape this gun.
Yeah.
And it was everywhere.
It's the smoking gun of Westworld.
The smoking gun of Westworld.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. So that's good. I am very excited. And she's met up with her friend that she met last episode, who seems like quite a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
But he's with his friend who's not a nice guy.
The other nice guy, yeah.
Yeah, why did his douchey friend go with him to the I thought he wanted to just sleep with whores at the Westworld Tavern. I don't know why he went on the exhibition.
I don't know why, if somebody was marrying your sister, you would think this would be an appropriate bachelor party, is to go sleep with prostitutes.
Yeah, this guy.
Don't send me a message telling me
whatever floats your boat
behind it.
No.
Yeah. This is, guys, Timo, the worst brother in the world.
The worst brother in the world. But the nice one, which I call the guy from House of Cards, because I just can't ever remember his name.
I call him the guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
There you go. He is. I don't know what to make of him either. But he's the character. He's very it's someone that we can all kind of look to and like. He's likable, and so I just don't know what more to say about him though.
I think like him and Dolores could have a thing going, and this is sort of the first like sort of robot human romance sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Amanda, you're shaking your head. What are you thinking?
I mean, he's clearly going to be more involved, but I just. Yeah, I don't know about this whole, like, he's going to fall in love with a robot kind of a thing. But because one honorable mention of his character is he's refused to, like, be with any of these prostitute robots so far. So,
but maybe that's telegraphing that he's going to have a change of heart and he's going to grow and develop, and it's like a shock. Like, I think it's going to happen. I think it's like it's going to then test our understanding of how the parameters that robots live in, and they can have romantic feelings and all that stuff. I can totally see it on the horizon. We'll see.
Yeah, and I think he's like he doesn't want to sleep with the other ones because they're just like he's viewing them as attractions or whatever. Whereas Dolores, he's going to get feelings for. He's going to get an emotional connection with and an attachment and stuff. I think we're like, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We are obviously James Marsden is now part of Anthony Hopkins' big story. His big. We saw the Red River Odyssey news story get scrapped last week. That was a dud idea, and now we've got Anthony Hopkins, evil guy, military war thing, which James Marsden now has a backstory for. So that's were you excited by that, Rob?
Yeah, but to be honest, I'm going to watch the episode again because even though I was following what was going on, I just want to see if I can pick up on any hints and subtle kind of Easter eggy type imagery in those, like, you know, those flashbacks. Because were they flashbacks? I guess you could call them that. And because there is more to it than I think what we're being led to believe. I think maybe there could even be something in there to explain where James Marsden's character was kind of drawn from. I don't know. I'm going to stay silent because I really just don't know what to make of it, but it's fascinating. I'm totally fascinated by that.
Amanda?
I'm fascinated by James Marsden's character to begin with because I don't understand why he hasn't woken up when he's had so much contact with Andy Newton's character and with Evan Rachel Wood's Dolores's character. Why he still seems to be like reverting back to programming. But it was interesting the scene he had with Anthony Hopkins, just because he's literally telling him, "You're never going to get her. all these things you want are never going to happen." And again, I understand why the show would put two people in the lead actors since there are so many men involved, but I just wonder if he's got something else planned. He feels like he's had the least to do for the amount of press that he's done for this show.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very interesting. Like, I think the James Marsden I love that scene with him and Dolores, where Dolores was like, "Oh, we should run away together." And he's like, "Yeah, we'll do that someday." And she goes, "Oh, it's just what everyone says. It's what everyone says when they are never going to do anything. Let's do it today. Let's run away today." It's like, nah. Got to get some stuff sorted. We'll do it someday. And then, like, when he's talking to Anthony Hopkins, like, he doesn't even have a clue what he's got to do. He's like, "Yeah, we haven't given you any sort of information. You just vaguely know that it's like there's some stuff from your past you have to deal with." Yeah. Anyway, he got something though. His best mates from the war is now an evil guy, and he's the only guy who survived something with him. So now he's gonna try to take him down, which is unsuccessful. But the great thing of Westworld is you always get another bite at the cherry. You always get another crack at the apple. Yeah, he'll have many more times to try to win that battle. Yeah. Anything else from the episode?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I'm really impressed, and I'm looking forward to next week.
I thought the graphics were very impressive, just watching how they create those eyes. I know it's not really a plot aspect of it, but just how interesting the effects are in this, because they're so different from what we've seen on other shows.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh, well, it's good talking Westworld with you, Amanda and Rob. Next week we'll have another recap of the 4th episode, which is called something. I could probably look that up now, but I don't have it in front of me. I am gonna look it up now. I feel bad for saying that I could do it, but I'm not going to. Let me have a look. Wikipedia is surely the place to go. Oh, no, Gold Derby's the place to go.
I'm going to see if I can beat you.
Okay. Oh no. Now I feel pressure on. Let's see.
I'm just trying to take the pressure off. Okay, ready?
I'm going. Okay. Oh, okay. What is it called?
Dissonance
No, I don't have it.
theory. Dissonance theory.
Oh. Okay. I'm intrigued.
Whatever the hell that means.
Might need more space on your board for that one.
Yeah. I like it. I love the board.
Ooh. Yeah, I'll start working on it now, guys. Start working on it now. Well, thanks for watching our Westworld chat. You can enjoy even more conversations on the Gold Derby forums, goldderby.com, and you can make your Screen Actors Guild award predictions and everything there. Great chatting with you as always, Amanda. Great to have you on board with the Westworld chats, Rob. And yeah, next week we'll have another one.